Humans are designed to recognize flaws. You won't notice that every day if you put a shirt on that it has all of its buttons. And yet, the day that you put the shirt on and a button is missing, you immediately notice that it's out of place and there's something wrong. In fact, the experience of noticing flaws is worse than this, because often the things that go well, we don't actually spend any time in experiencing the thing going well. Let's say one day there is no queue to buy something at the supermarket, or you're driving and there is no traffic. You don't spend any time sitting in delight waiting to get to the end of the queue because you're already at the end of the queue. Whereas, if you arrive at the end of a very large queue, you have the whole queue to sit in being frustrated, maybe for half an hour, maybe a whole hour, just sitting there being frustrated at your bad luck. But you don't spend much time sitting in your good luck. Hello, and welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of paying the price of admission. We're going to learn how to notice wider statistics in our life, to be more aware of all the good things in our life and recognize the size of the small costs we may pay to get the overall good things. This way, we can accept small problems gladly and with a lot less frustration. So firstly, we're going to talk about relationships. We'll often expect perfection from our relationships, and we're not always ready to deal with the other imperfections that just naturally occur with any person. We'll just look at their problems. We'll hold on to their flaws and we'll try to change them, and we'll store up our feelings and we'll just cause arguments and make the whole relationship worse for them and ourselves. Now, if you want to ride on a roller coaster, you'll have to pay a fee to get on it. And it's the same with any person in the world will probably have some habits that you don't like. Because they are a human, they are not a perfect entity. Equally, you will probably have some habits that anybody else in the world won't like. And that is, of course, there are some non-negotiables, whatever they might be for you, that are part of a healthy relationship. But other things you should be flexible on. On The Art of Negotiation, James Clear states that if you are stuck in a negotiation, figure out the one thing for you that is truly non-negotiable, and then you can compromise on anything else. It actually doesn't matter. So let's say you're a tidy person and the person you're in a relationship with is less tidy. They'll often leave dirty dishes around. That could be very annoying. But if they have lots of qualities that you do like and love, and you enjoy having your time and your life with them, well, if after a few years they still have this habit of dirty dishes, it's probably worth you not getting annoyed at them every day because you're also just annoying yourself, and it's just part of the relationship. If they have all the other good qualities that you like, you may as well pay the price of admission and accept that. You might like to think that it's great that you can bring your own tidying skills and they can bring their humor or their kindness, whatever it is that you like about them, and that you make a great team together. Of course, if their lack of tidying is just a sign of their general approach to life, and they're just a shambles of a person and you actually just dislike basically everything about their personality and you want them to be a different human entirely before you can love them, well, you're not actually in love with this person. You're just in love with an idea of someone that is completely different, in which case you clearly don't want to pay the price of admission because that's not a ride you want to be on, and the costs are outweighing the benefits, so it makes sense to get off the ride. But usually, if you zoom out, look at the big picture, the costs are often quite small, and you're just shooting yourself in the foot when you get annoyed at something every day if it's just a small habit that they have. You're ruining your own happiness when there's a chance to be grateful for the overall package. If your short-term need for perfection is ruining the long-term need for something that's just healthy and good, if you're going to abandon the relationship really quickly because of some small things, like whatever relationship you're going to find next is going to have lots of other small things. They might not be the same, but you can't find perfect. It doesn't exist. And you should, of course, remember that you probably annoy people daily with some things that you do as well, and that you probably don't think about too much because it's just not something that you care about. So don't bring your fast judgments when there's a much bigger thing to look at. There's no point in complaining and harboring bad feelings when there's like a much bigger thing that you're not appreciating. A relationship is a ride. It will go up and down, and you do need to pay the price of admission. Now, it's not just relationships. It's the same with things like the stock market. The stock market is inherently irrational on a day-to-day basis. It goes up and down a lot. The real rewards in the stock market come from playing the long game. as companies, ETFs increase in value and outperform your savings with ease if you don't mess with them. But so many people get into the stock market and then they lose money because they just get too involved with it. If you buy a stock and expect it to just follow a perfect straight line to the top to double your money, that's not realistic. And if the moment it starts to go down, you panic and sell, you'll start losing money. If you wait for it to go up again and then buy after it's gone up, again, you've lost money. Now, to play the stock market and make money out of its irrationality, out of its volatility, you have to be along for the ride. You have to accept the price of admission, which is that at certain times, your money will go down as well as up because that's how it works. Just like in relationships, you can't expect things to be perfect and easy every single day. But to enjoy the fruits of the stock market, you have to have a long-term mindset and pay the price of admission. Now, there's plenty more examples just like this if you look into it in life. There is no such thing as a perfect job, but there are plenty of things that are good enough. If you want to work remotely, you will just have less social time with people. You'll find it harder to make friends or settle into new cities, but you'll have the freedom to work from wherever you want. If you want to travel, you will have to spend time finding hotels and Airbnbs and flights and insurance and vaccinations and packing and losing stuff, but you'll get to travel. If you want to be healthy, you'll have to make time for exercise. You'll have to work out when you don't feel like working out. You'll have to be prepared to become sweaty and exhausted in front of strangers, but you'll be healthier. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to take risks. You have to go through moments of crushing difficulty and exhaustion. And if entrepreneurship was easy, everyone would have a ragingly successful business already. The fact that entrepreneurship is hard is why entrepreneurship has rewards that most people don't have. If entrepreneurship was instantly rewarding, everyone would already be massively successful. I just love the phrase that to become a professional at anything, you have to be comfortable as a terrible amateur first. So whatever you do in life, good things do have a cost, and you should pay it gladly. It's the price of admission. If you panic straight away, and if you're not willing to ever pay the cost of admission, you'll never be able to enjoy the ride. So we'll have a quick ad break now and then move into some other ideas from psychology and philosophy that relate to the concept of the price of admission, but exploring it from different angles in the realms of gratitude and perfection that give us more ways of finding peace with ourselves and living life with a more efficient and graceful style. Coming up after the break. To recap so far, human brains are fantastic at noticing problems and embarrassingly terrible at appreciating when things go correctly. As I said, you don't spend 20 minutes basking in glory every green traffic light. You just curse the universe when you get stuck behind the slow driver. Nature blessed us with a hyper-vigilant flaw-detection software that's useful for spotting tigers hidden in bushes and a pain in the ass for maintaining healthy relationships. Which, of course, is why the price of admission concept is so powerful, but it's not just about accepting the flaws. It's about recognizing that everything good in life does come with costs attached, and our brains are wired to fixate on those costs whilst taking the benefits for granted. But this, of course, is a huge problem and makes the point of why the concept of gratitude is spoken about so widely when it comes to happiness. So let's lean on some psychology to give us some new angles here. Research on gratitude found that it fundamentally changes how we even perceive costs. In studies on trait gratitude and economic decision-making, researchers found that grateful people are significantly more likely to accept unfair offers in economic games. Now, why? It's because they're just better at seeing the value in an imperfect situation. It might sound like they're just dumb and happy to get screwed over in a game, but perhaps they just aren't tearing themselves apart to win any game at all costs, regardless of how unimportant some aspects of that game are to the rest of their lives. When you feel grateful, you don't just feel warm and fuzzy. It literally changes how your brain calculates cost-benefit analyses. Instead of thinking, it's lame that my dog needs to be walked even when it's raining, a grateful mind thinks, I've got a loyal companion who brings joy and unconditional love into my life. Instead of focusing on the time it takes you to cook a recipe or the amount of dirty dishes your cooking creates, you're grateful. Instead, you're grateful to have fresh ingredients and knowledge to make nutritious and delicious food. Instead of focusing on frustrations when you learn a new skill, you're happy for the opportunity to expand your mind along with the occasional struggles that go with it. So gratitude isn't about being a pushover. It's actually about growth mindset, embracing the difficulties with open arms. Instead of sweating your losses, chasing your mate for whatever fiver you lent them, you can transcend all that meaningless crap and worry and focus on your gains. Sure, in each little scenario, you might feel like you're expecting a small loss. You might be losing some convenience in your life. But gratitude is about playing the more important game of overall life satisfaction by using some practical psychology that transforms how you experience your entire day and thus your life. The importance of this point is shown from a completely different angle if we look at it from the concept of perfection and the principle of diminishing returns. I did allude to this earlier, but whenever you try to optimize anything, after a certain point, your efforts to make something perfect yield smaller and smaller improvements, whilst the costs, of course, continue to rise. Let's say you want to enjoy your job and you want to find the perfect job. You might find one that meets 80% of your criteria with relatively little effort. Now, getting to 90% perfect for you could require significantly more searching, significantly more time being unemployed and interviews, etc. And then trying to reach 100% perfect, that might be literally impossible or require such extreme sacrifices in other areas of your life that it's really not worth it. The same principle applies to your investments. How many book drafts you make, health routines, practicing music, relationships, of course. Basically, everything has diminishing returns where the costs just become greater. We have to realize there's a sweet spot to aim for, after which the benefits far outweigh the costs, and pushing beyond that point will make your life worse, not better. This is why accepting the price of admission as a concept is so smart. You're not settling for a partner below your worth. You're optimizing for enjoying your life and actually living it. Fairy tales and society do make us a little bit broken by giving us these expectations that love is about some perfect person who's ideal in every way. When we think about any flaws in our partner, we're optimizing for the wrong game when we only think about the concept of perfect in one dimension. Because sure, they might annoy you in some ways, but how much more annoying would it be to remain single for 20 years with endless failed relationships? If you're putting your life on hold to constantly wait for it to get better, you're missing your entire life after all. Again, I'm not suggesting that you should never leave a relationship. I'm saying learn from the major deal breakers that you can't accept, and then appreciate the people that do meet those deal breakers, regardless of whatever smaller nuances they might have, because the concept of perfect is an illusion that will actually make you unhappy. This reminds me of the philosopher Martha Nussbaum's brilliant concept of the descent of love. This directly conflicts with Plato, who believed that love should ascend towards perfection. He said that we should love the ideal form of a person rather than the flawed reality, whereas Nussbaum basically said, screw that. She turned the ladder upside down. She argued that true love requires descending into the messy, imperfect reality of actual humans. Not about overlooking flaws, it's about seeing them clearly and lovingly anyway. It's not settling, it's a more mature, ultimately more satisfying form of love. When you've taken on the paying the price of admission concept, you're not just tolerating the flaws, you're embracing the whole complex, wonderfully imperfect human being that you're with, and that's where the real magic happens. That's where you actually get to meet someone on their level and have a real connection. Because if you're putting pressure on someone to hide their flaws or to change, they can't really be themselves around you. Equally, you can't be yourself around them. And that, of course, makes the relationship worse. And for me, this is a whole area where I think things just get really cool. When we can change our mindset and frame of thinking, research shows there's a reciprocal relationship between gratitude and then our life satisfaction. It's basically a virtuous cycle where the more grateful we are, the more satisfied we are with our life, which in turn makes us more grateful. So if you're accepting the price of admission concept, the good things in your life will trigger this virtuous cycle. You become more grateful for what you have, makes you happier, makes you more accepting of the small imperfections in your life. You become more grateful, and on in an upward spiral of well-being and happiness. Sure, you probably won't reach like full enlightenment, etc., but you get the point, especially when you contrast it with the opposite, which is the vicious cycle of perfectionism. You focus on flaws. It makes you less satisfied, which makes you notice even more flaws, which makes you more miserable, which makes things seem even worse. And you just get stuck in a downward spiral of perpetual disappointment and dissatisfaction with your life. And you really don't want to get caught in that. And in case I haven't given you enough ways to think about this, I have 2 final short little mental models to help. One concept that perfectly aligns with the price of admission is the opportunity cost. What you are giving up when you refuse to pay the price of admission. That means you dump a great partner because they're messy, or you sell your stocks because they dip 5%. You quit a good job because your boss occasionally annoys you. Well, you're not just avoiding a small cost, you're potentially missing out on the massive benefits. So if you are a type A person who likes analyzing things and looking at costs of things, then using the full opportunity cost lens of a situation, and of course the opportunity costs of any perfectionism, makes things pretty obvious. People who can't accept small flaws end up with nothing, whilst those who pay the price of admission get to enjoy the ride. Finally, there's a Chinese folktale about a water carrier named Chang, who had 2 pots, one perfect and one cracked. The cracked pot leaked water all along the path, which initially seemed like a flaw, but Chang planted flower seeds along that side of the path, and this meant that the leaking water nourished these seedlings and created a beautiful garden that wouldn't have existed if she'd had 2 perfect pots. Sometimes when we're looking at things we perceive as flaws, we miss that they actually can create unexpected value. The partner who's messy might also be someone that's spontaneous and creative, that brings joy to your life that you might not have if you're an organized person. Volatile stocks and investments can deliver higher returns because they're riskier. A challenging job that sometimes keeps you working late might be building some major skills for you that a comfortable one never would. When you zoom out and look at the big picture, even if you start from the Big Bang, as Tim Urban says, we always find that imperfections aren't just inevitable, they're often really valuable in ways that we wouldn't have predicted. So when we're cursing things going wrong, they're actually going right, and we just haven't worked out what's going right yet. So the next time you are finding yourself fixating on a flaw, remember you aren't just paying the price of admission, you're buying a ticket to a richer, more satisfying life than perfectionism could ever provide. And hopefully it's a price worth paying with a smile. The observant amongst you might remember that last month I mentioned having a rebrand of the show. Well, as an update, that's on a bit of a hiatus because I'm actually launching an entirely new show instead, which has been my focus. So I'm keeping the Growth Mindset show as the Growth Mindset for now. And the new show is going to be about the history of innovation and how the world changes, how we deal with change, and how to create change. It's going to be full of mental models and systems thinking when it comes to innovation, as well as lots of history lessons and stories going in chronological order from the start of recorded history up to the present day. I'm excited about it, and you'll hear more when it's actually released in a few weeks' time. But for now, you know what I'm up to. And if you want to talk to me about it, I have my Wednesday afternoons to take calls with listeners if they are feeling intrigued. The links are in the description if you want to get amongst it. Of course, we also have the premium membership for ad-free listening, Discord access, and our book club. Links are in the description. Again, if you are interested. If you do feel like investing in making a good review of the show, that would make me very happy. But of course, I don't expect all of my listeners to go out and review the show instantly. That would be an irrational belief and would make me depressed if I believed it, because it wouldn't happen. Instead, I'm aware that most people are just busy. They're doing stuff with their life rather than waiting around to make a good comment on my podcast. And you know, if you want to be a podcaster, you have to deal with the fact that even when you have thousands of listeners, a tiny percentage of that might leave a review if you're lucky. It's just human nature. So anyway, on the topic of human nature, life is short and it is to be enjoyed. Importantly, enjoying yourself is not a thing for the future. It's not a future task that you'll get round to someday, like leaving me a good review. No, enjoying yourself is a task that starts right now. So be bloody lovely to yourself, even if that does mean doing some hard things. Remember, you can be grateful and enjoy doing the hard things. And whilst you're at it, be kind to someone else too. Thank you so much for listening.
Go you!
Your consistency to reach the end of an episode is legendary.
My hero!
If you have any ideas or feedback for the show, I'm always interested to hear from you.
You're the best!
Studies show we need time for information to sink in, so I'm going to give you a 5-second pause, silence, to reflect on one idea from the show before you jump back into your busy life. Ready and go.